Rain hammered the windows of Vane Manor on the morning Duke Alastair Vane returned home without warning. 5 years had passed since the woman he intended to marry had supposedly died, yet the sight of a plain grey dress moving across his marble floor stopped him colder than any grave ever could. The young maid knelt beside a bucket, scrubbing mud from the tiles with reddened hands. She looked exhausted, but when she heard his footsteps, she rose quickly and lowered her head. "Your Grace." Alastair barely heard the greeting. He was staring at her face. The same dark eyes. The same delicate mouth. The same small crescent-shaped scar beneath her left ear. Elena. The cloth slipped from her fingers. For one fragile second, recognition flashed across her features. Then it vanished beneath practiced calm. "My name is Mara Vale, Your Grace." Alastair stepped closer. "You look exactly like her. I have been told I resemble many people. You have her scar." Her hand flew instinctively to her neck. That movement shattered his last doubt. 5 years earlier, Alastair had stood beside a burned carriage while Elena Marlowe's family told him she had died. Her brother, Gideon, had shown him the necklace recovered from the wreckage and sworn there was nothing left of her. Alastair had searched until grief finally defeated hope. Yet here she stood, alive, and afraid. "Who hired you?" he asked. Mara's eyes dropped. "Lord Gideon's steward." Alastair's expression hardened. "Gideon." She said nothing. That silence told him more than an answer could have. Later that evening, Alastair discovered Mara slipping through a disused corridor carrying bread beneath her shawl. He followed her to an abandoned room and found a little boy sleeping beneath a thin blanket. Mara turned sharply. "Please don't send him away." "Who is he?" "My brother, Noah." The boy's breathing was shallow. Alastair's anger disappeared. "Why is he not with a physician?" "Because I cannot afford one." "You stole the bread?" "For him." Alastair looked at the woman's swollen hands and worn shoes. Instead of calling the guards, he ordered his physician to treat Noah immediately. Mara stared at him as though kindness were something she no longer understood. "You shouldn't help us," she whispered. "Gideon will punish me." Alastair's voice became dangerously quiet. "Let him try." The physician arrived before midnight, and Noah's fever began to break. But when Alastair returned to the corridor, he found Gideon waiting. The older man smiled without warmth. "Your Grace, I wondered how long it would take you to recognize her." Alastair went still. Gideon glanced toward the room where Mara stood protecting her brother. "She is not what you think." "Then tell me what she is." Gideon's smile disappeared. "A woman who was supposed to stay dead." Behind the door, Mara heard every word. And for the first time in 5 years, she realized the secret she had sacrificed everything to protect might finally be exposed. Gideon's words left the corridor unnaturally quiet. Alastair studied the man who had once delivered Elena's supposed death with convincing sorrow and wondered how many times that same voice had lied to him. "What are you implying?" Alastair asked. Gideon smiled faintly. "Only that grief can make a man see what he desperately wants to see." Alastair stepped closer. "Then why are you afraid?" The smile vanished. Behind the half-open door, Mara pressed one hand against her mouth. She had spent 5 years surviving by remaining invisible, yet the Duke had recognized her within seconds. Now the one man capable of exposing Gideon was standing between her and the only secret she had left, Noah's safety. Gideon lowered his voice. "Send that girl away, Your Grace. She brings trouble. She works in my household. She is a liar." Alastair looked toward Mara. "Perhaps you should ask her why she lies." Gideon's jaw tightened. Mara understood then that Alastair was not accusing her. He was giving her a chance. When Gideon finally left, Alastair entered the room. Mara immediately stepped between him and Noah. "You should have stayed away from me." "I tried." She looked at him. "For 5 years." His voice softened. "I searched for you." Mara's composure cracked. "Gideon told me you stopped." "He lied. He said you married." I never married. He said you blamed me for ruining your life. Alastair stared at her in disbelief. Elena, I spent 5 years mourning you. Hearing her real name broke the final wall she had built around herself. She sank into a chair. My name is Elena, she whispered. But I couldn't live as her. She told him about the night the carriage crashed, about waking injured among strangers, and about discovering that Gideon had been stealing from their family's fortune. When she threatened to expose him, he retaliated by threatening Noah, who had been only a child. He told me that if I returned to you, Noah would disappear. Alastair's hands curled into fists. So you vanished. To keep him alive. And Gideon knew where you were? He always knew. That revelation transformed Alastair's grief into fury. Before he could respond, Noah stirred. Elena! She rushed to him. The boy opened his eyes and smiled weakly. Are we safe? She glanced at Alastair. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe the answer might be yes. We are now. A crash sounded downstairs. Alastair immediately drew his pistol. The servants screamed. Gideon had returned with armed men. He had not come to threaten Elena. He had come to erase her. Alastair locked the door and ordered the servants to secure the staircase. Then he turned to Elena. Take Noah through the old passage. What about you? I'll hold them. No. Her answer surprised them both. Elena took his hand. I spent 5 years running because I was afraid of losing the people I loved. She tightened her grip. I'm not running again. The door shook beneath a violent blow. Alastair looked at her, and something warmer than grief passed between them. Then stay beside me. The door splintered. And together, they faced the men who had kept Elena dead in the eyes of the world for 5 long years. The door exploded inward. Alastair shoved Elena behind him as 2 armed men stormed into the room. Their boots struck the floor with brutal force, but neither man reached the threshold before Alastair struck the first across the jaw and sent him crashing into the wall. The second raised his weapon. Elena seized a heavy candlestick and struck his wrist. The pistol clattered away. Run! Alastair ordered. I'm not leaving you. Before he could answer, Gideon appeared at the end of the corridor. You always were predictable, he said. Alastair stepped forward. This ends tonight. Gideon laughed. You think arresting me will restore 5 years? No. But it will stop you from stealing another. Gideon's expression hardened. He revealed that Elena's disappearance had never been an accident. He had discovered her father intended to expose his financial crimes, so Gideon had forged documents, diverted the family fortune, and arranged Elena's disappearance before she could inherit anything. Elena stared at him. You destroyed my life for money. For power, Gideon corrected. Money was merely the easiest path to it. Then Noah screamed from the upper floor. Gideon had anticipated their resistance. Another accomplice had taken the boy and fled through the rear passage. Elena ran. Alastair followed. They reached the courtyard just as a carriage disappeared beyond the gates. Noah! Elena cried. A groom pointed toward the mountain road. They're heading for the old quarry. Alastair mounted the nearest horse. Elena climbed behind him. You could be killed. So could you. I won't let you come. You stopped being able to command me when you found me. Despite the danger, Alastair almost smiled. They rode into the storm. At the abandoned quarry, they found Noah locked inside a storage building. Smoke poured through the broken windows. Gideon had set the place ablaze. Alastair forced open the door. Elena, stay outside. She shook her head. You taught me not to run. Together they entered. The heat became unbearable. Wooden beams cracked overhead, and flames swallowed the narrow passage. They found Noah tied to a post. Elena dropped to her knees. I've got you. A beam crashed behind them. The only exit was blocked. Alastair lifted Noah into his arms. Elena, climb through that window. She refused. Then Gideon appeared above them on the collapsing staircase. "You should have stayed dead." He fired. Alistair turned instinctively. The bullet grazed his shoulder. Elena grabbed the fallen iron hook beside her and struck Gideon's hand. He lost his balance and tumbled onto the lower platform. Guards arrived moments later, having followed Alistair's trail. Gideon was dragged from the burning building in chains. But the rescue was not over. A final beam collapsed between Alistair and Elena. For one terrible second, she could not see him. "Alistair." His hand emerged through the smoke. She seized it. "I thought I lost you again." "You haven't." With Noah between them, they crawled toward the shattered doorway. They escaped just before the roof collapsed. Outside, rain extinguished the flames while Elena held Noah against her chest and Alistair pressed a hand against his wounded shoulder. For the first time, none of them were running. Gideon was in custody. Noah was safe. And Elena was finally free. Alistair looked at her through the rain. "You don't have to disappear anymore." She reached for his hand. "I don't want to." He squeezed her fingers. "Then come home." Elena looked toward the distant manor, then back at the man who had searched for her when everyone else had accepted her death. For 5 years, home had been a place she feared returning to. Now, for the first time, she understood that home was not a building. It was the person who had never stopped looking for her. But when they returned to the manor, an unexpected letter was waiting on Alistair's desk, one that would reveal a final secret about Elena's past and change all 3 of their lives forever. The letter waiting on Alistair's desk had been sealed with a crest Elena recognized instantly. Her father's. Her hands trembled as she touched the wax. "My father died before I found you," she whispered. Alistair opened the letter carefully. Inside was a single confession. Elena's father had discovered Gideon's crimes shortly before his disappearance. He had hidden evidence proving the thefts and had arranged for Elena to inherit everything if anything happened to him. But there was more. He had known Gideon might try to silence her. The final line made Elena gasp. "Your father believed you were alive." She read the sentence again, tears blurring the ink. "He was searching for me." Alistair nodded. "He never abandoned you." For 5 years, Elena had carried the belief that everyone she loved had either died or forgotten her. Now she learned that her father had spent his final years trying to uncover the truth. The discovery changed her grief. It no longer felt like an empty wound. It felt like unfinished love. Alistair placed the remaining documents before her. They contained financial records, names of witnesses, and proof that Gideon had forged Elena's death. With the evidence secured, Gideon could no longer escape justice. Weeks later, the court stripped him of his title and fortune. The family estate was returned to Elena, but she refused to live there. Too many memories belonged to the woman she had once been. Instead, she chose the neglected Vane estate where she had first been found. She transformed the servants' quarters into comfortable rooms and converted an unused wing into a refuge for children who had nowhere else to go. Noah thrived. He regained his health, returned to school, and became fiercely protective of his sister. Alistair watched Elena rebuild her life without demanding that she become the woman she had been before. That was what made her love him. He never tried to rescue her from her scars. He simply stayed beside her while she learned to live beyond them. One spring evening, Elena found him beneath the old rose arbor. "You've been very patient," she said. Alistair smiled. "I had 5 years of practice." She stepped closer. "I used to think love meant someone saving you. And now I think love means someone gives you the freedom to save yourself." Alistair reached for her hand. "Then let me ask you something." He knelt. Elena covered her mouth. "Alistair, I lost you once because other people decided your future for you. I won't make that mistake. So this is not a demand, and it is not a duty." He held out a simple ring. "It is a choice. Will you choose me?" Elena looked at the ring, then at the man who had mourned her when the world told him to forget her. "Yes." Their wedding was held beneath the roses, with Noah standing proudly beside them. There was no grandeur, only warmth. For the first time, Elena walked toward a future without fear. But the happiest surprise came after the ceremony. An elderly woman arrived carrying a small wooden chest. She introduced herself as the traveler who had rescued Elena after the carriage crash 5 years earlier. Inside the chest was a letter from Elena's father that had never reached her. The final words were simple. "If my daughter is reading this, then she survived. Tell her I was never ashamed of her. Tell her I waited for her. And tell her to build a life so full of love that no one will ever convince her she was unwanted again." Elena wept against Alistair's shoulder. Years later, the mansion no longer echoed with grief. Children laughed in its halls. Noah managed the gardens. Elena ran the school and refuge. And Alistair still found excuses to walk past the kitchen just to steal a kiss from his wife. The woman once declared dead had become the heart of the house. She had lost 5 years. But she had gained something no one could steal again. A brother who was safe, a father whose final love had found its way home, a husband who had never stopped searching, and a future she was finally free to choose. And every evening, when the roses bloomed outside their window, Elena remembered the lie that had nearly destroyed her. She is dead. 5 years later, she had proved them wrong, not merely by surviving, but by living a life so beautiful that even death itself seemed to have lost the argument.